Hello, all, and greetings from the United States. My name is Bill McKibben. I'm a writer and activist. I live in the Green Mountain state of Vermont, and I've been at this work a long time. I published what's usually regarded as the first book for a general audience about climate change way back in the 1980s, which gives you some sense just how ancient I am. Um, so, you all know the bad news, which is that everything scientists told us was going to happen is happening and more. We're really in now the midst of the physical degradation of this earth that comes when you trap more of its heat in our narrow envelope of atmosphere, fire, flood, and not least the ongoing destruction of extraordinary natural resources like the Great Barrier Reef or like the great kelp forests that fringe so much of Australia, or on and on and on. Um, it's very easy to be discouraged. It's especially easy to be discouraged right now here in the United States, because you know who is ruling our country, um, and and he's not very bright. Um, and so we're doing everything we can in America to slow down the progress that we need to make. But, but there is one big good thing happening on this planet, and it's big enough and good enough that it can take a bite out of both the climate crisis and the authoritarianism crisis, and that is this sudden, rapid surge in clean energy over the last 36 months or so around this planet. Once the price of energy from the sun and wind fell below the price of energy from the combustion of fossil fuels, suddenly things started to shift. And what had been for 40 years alternative energy suddenly became the obvious way forward. That's why now around the planet we're seeing just remarkable change. The Earth this November is producing a third more power from the sun than it did last November. That's what the steep part of an S curve looks like. If we can keep that exponential growth going for a few years, then we're going to start shaving tenths of a degree off how hot the planet gets. And every tenth of a degree that we raise the temperature moves another 100 million of our brothers and sisters out of a safe climate zone into a dangerous one. So there is nothing we could be doing that is more important than this. Um, I wrote about all of this in this new book of mine, Here Comes the Sun. And it has many parts. It's all interesting, these stories. Um, Things like the fact that we're understanding now that we're going to have to do a lot less mining in a renewable energy future, simply because we won't have to keep replenishing the stocks of coal and gas and oil that we constantly burn. Things like the fact that human beings are figuring out in beautiful ways how to invent a whole new field of human endeavor that we're calling agrovoltaics, which just means growing things in the rows between solar panels. Turns out we're producing not just electrons, but shade, and shade is an important commodity on an overheating planet. But I think in some ways, for me, the best part of this story has been the understanding of what it could mean for the poorest people in countries on this earth. Since I live in America and you live in Australia, we have a warped view of the world. 80% of human beings live in countries that have to import fossil fuel. And that is an unbelievable drag on people's economies, personal and collective, national. When we talk about developing countries being in balance of payments trouble or having a debt crisis, or the IMF has to come in and impose structural austerity and so on and so forth, the culprit in large measure is usually something to do with the fact that they have to keep buying more and more and more fossil fuel. They got to pay in US dollars for that next cargo of crude that's swinging at anchor out there in the harbor. And if they don't, their economy collapses, and if they do, they go into debt, and it is a vicious circle. Um, Everybody's got sun and wind. The sun works better the closer you get to the equator. This is an extraordinary possibility to begin rebalancing the books a little bit on this planet. Um, Even big countries, say India, biggest, most populous country on earth, India spends something like 5% of its GDP importing fossil fuel. That's a ton, you know, money that could be far better spent on lots of other things. And so countries around the world are beginning to figure this out. Yes, the US is trying to coerce them into buying more liquefied natural gas. Yes, Australia continues immorally to be a major marketer of fossil fuel to the rest of the world. But country after country is trying their best to buy instead the technology, solar panels, wind turbines, often from China, that allow them to become functionally independent, to depend not on China or the US or Australia, but to depend on the fact that so far the sun has risen every single morning. Um, and that is a very powerful change in this world. Yeah, it comes at some cost for exporting countries like the US or Australia, but Australia is one of the most educated countries on earth. There are lots of things that Australians can do that do not involve mining coal. Whenever I'm there, it seems to me that the main beneficiaries are that handful of billionaires, all of whom seem absolutely American in their ridiculousness to me. Somehow it's always been particularly fitting to me that one of them is using his fortune to build a full-scale model replica of the Titanic. Nothing could be much more on the nose than that, I fear. So it's a beautiful, beautiful possibility to imagine. Think about what the geopolitics of planet Earth would have been like for the last 100 years if oil had been of relatively trivial value, if we'd been running the planet on sun and wind all that time. Um, Humans are good at starting wars over things, but they're going to have to work to start one over sunshine. So I think that the great possibility of our moment is to speed up this transition, to make it happen faster than it would based on economics alone. Look, 30, 40 years from now, we'll run the planet on sun and wind and batteries because they're cheap. But if it takes us 30 or 40 years, then the planet we run on sun and wind will be a broken planet, and that is the last thing we want. So, our work here in the States in the last year has been all about trying to really evangelize for this stuff. We had this big event we called Sunday in September that I think is going to go global next year. You can get a sense of it by going to the website at sunday.earth. Um, and one of the things you'll see is that it's very beautiful because that's part of this fight too. Um, there's something extraordinarily beautiful about turning to our local star, the most charismatic object in our corner of the universe, the thing that already provides us with light and warmth and via photosynthesis with our supper, to turn to it for all the power that we need. Catch its rays on those panels, take advantage of the fact that it differentially heats the earth, producing the wind that turns those majestic turbines. Um, this is an extraordinary opportunity. And I'm very grateful that y'all are thinking hard about how to make it real. As I say, it's happening. We want it to happen fast. So many, many thanks for being part of this fight. And I look forward to getting to join you in person before very long because we got to do this everywhere. They don't call it global warming for nothing. If you want one mantra from me, what I've been saying all year long to people is time for energy from heaven, not from hell. Take care.